Welcome to Next Chapter Living, planning your retirement story. Today, we are sounding the alarm on a topic that is overdue for a serious conversation: women and wealth. According to UBS, 85% of women manage everyday expenses, yet only 23% take the lead on long-term financial planning. That means millions of women are confidently handling the day-to-day, but maybe missing out on the bigger picture: retirement, estate planning, and investment strategy. Well, joining me today is our host, Stephen Sabo. Stephen is a financial advisor at Executive Financial Group right here in Pennsylvania. You can learn more at executivefinancialgroup.com or by calling 724-283-2806. This is our wake-up call for women, Stephen. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm taking notes on this one. Wake-up call for women. I'm here for it.
Well, I'm here to help.
So a recent study that was conducted by UBS found that 85% of women are managing the day-to-day, but only 23% are taking the lead on the long-term part. What advice do you have for women who may be avoiding these sort of long-term topics?
Yeah, we see that a lot. And especially, around here, we have a lot of clients that, maybe the women didn't work outside of the house. They were taking care of things at home, raising the kids, taking care of the house, the day-to-day bills, all that stuff, which is a massive job in and of itself. And so, but the advice that I would have is you're capable, dive into it. We're here to help and I'm here to talk to you, and it's okay to take things slow and learn about it as we go. And, starting is one of the biggest things, just starting and asking questions. We have a number of, single, either widowed women or people that are, maybe divorced and now on their own. And, it's one of those things where you got to start. And, I think, like I said, a lot of people are a lot more capable than they think they are. It's scary, just like anything, right? If you were to never cook a turkey before in your life and you're now all of a sudden in charge of it for 25 people at Thanksgiving, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Right.
Hey, you just have to start somewhere. And so, we're here to teach you. We're here to walk with you through it all and kind of hold your hand, if you will, and take it step by step. There are no stupid questions. We want you to understand what we're doing and why we're planning for this, or why we're, doing what we're doing for you. But there's, if you're being rushed into something, I would take a step back. There's no rush to it. And we want to make sure that you're comfortable, with what we're recommending for you and why we're doing it. So,
well, you bring up a really interesting and super important factor, which is many women find themselves to be widows because women have a longer lifespan than men, generally speaking. And so they suddenly find themselves being the sole financial decision maker. And while they may have done the daily, they're now left being in charge of all of these long-term tasks, like settling estates or updating beneficiaries or planning for long-term care for themselves now that they're going to be a widow. Can you give me a sort of step-by-step approach to help widows regain financial clarity and confidence?
Yeah, this is a great question. And it popped into my mind. I'm thinking of a client a couple of years ago now. I think it's been, almost 2 or 3 years now. Her husband passed away. They became clients of ours. He was still alive. And, she had never worked outside of the home. He always worked and she, she stayed home. They had kids. She raised kids, took care of the household, all those things. And, her husband, it came on pretty quickly, and suddenly he got sick, and, it wasn't long before he passed away. And, she doesn't drive. Whenever she comes to our office, she says, oh, I need to check my son-in-law's schedule or my daughter's schedule or something like that, because they're going to have to bring me in. And, this was starting from ground zero with her. And, it's funny. She still emails me all the time. She's kind of like a mom. She, whenever they first became clients, she sewed my sister's kids' outfits. She's just, one of the nicest people in the world, but she really was clueless whenever it came to this. And so, we just had to walk with her step by step and explain to her and say, okay, look, whenever settling the estate, here's the process of how it works. And here's what we have to do. And here's how things have to go for this. And, so there was that. And then transferring accounts and making sure that she understood what we were doing with them and why, and, setting them up and setting up an income for her. And, so it's a process. And I think that not that she isn't an intelligent person, but sometimes you have to take it back to the most basic levels, because again, for her specifically, had never dealt with any of this stuff. It was always deferred to Larry, her husband, and, Larry will take care of it. And so, it's just even explaining what some of the accounts are and here's how they work. And you're required to take these distributions from this account because it's an IRS rule. And but just really creating a plan that spells it out for them, that you can walk through, and giving them as much time as they need. It's tough enough, losing your loved one of normally a pretty long time, and now all of a sudden be thrust into this position to make all these decisions. That's one of the biggest things, is she would always apologize. I'm just so sorry, Stephen. I this is such a big decision for me. I just don't know what to do. I need to sleep on this. I need to pray on it. And it was like, please quit apologizing first off, because you don't need to be sorry about anything. I want to help you with these things, but I understand that this is a lot for you. So whatever I can do to help explain and make it easier on you, please tell me, because I want to take it as slow as you want to go. Or if you say, we have some people that say, do what you've been doing for us, and just tell me whatever I need to do. Some people are like that, but I at least want you to know why we're doing what we're doing. And don't be afraid to ask me questions.
I think that's a huge testament to the success of the client relationship that you build with both parties, because a CNBC article that I read noted that 80% of widows leave the financial advisor that their husband was with after their husband passes, because they don't feel heard or seen or valued. And so it's a testament to you and what you're doing that she felt comfortable enough to stay. But what would you say to, I guess, the women out there that are with an advisor that they don't feel comfortable with? And what questions can they be asking? What questions should they be asking?
Yeah, I mean, being comfortable with your advisor is probably the most important thing. If you don't have a good relationship with them, then how are you gonna be able to approach them on topics, or if you feel like you aren't going to be heard or anything? And so, it's important to ask questions. I've got nothing to hide, so ask me whatever you want to ask me. If you're truthful and you're really there to help your clients, then you shouldn't have anything to hide. Some people are afraid to tell people, oh, you're being charged for this, or I'm going to be upfront with you and explain, here's what you're being charged for and why. And I think a lot of people are okay if you're upfront with them about it. I think people lose trust whenever you feel like you're kind of being that, kind of used car salesman, and you're shifty and not explaining it. Ask me whatever you want, and I think that, that would be my advice for people. If you aren't sure, ask about something. If you can't get a straight answer, or, then maybe it is time to reach out to somebody else, because, for me, again, you're already in a situation that you don't necessarily want to be in. You just lost a loved one. And so the worst thing that you could do is compound that by trying to speed somebody through a process, or not being upfront with them and open about how things are going to work, So I always just try and, I try and have compassion for those. My wife, Erica, her dad passed away whenever she was 9. And so, I think about her mom and all those years. Again, she didn't work outside the house. And now you're thrust into a completely new world. Single
parent, a widow.
It's tough. And I mean, God bless those people, because it really is hard. And so, if you can't go to somebody and ask them questions without feeling like you're bothering them, then, I think it's time to look elsewhere, because, you should be able to get those answers, and you should be able to get the time to, understand what it is that you're doing.
What about for the women that don't know what to ask? What are some good starting questions to get the ball rolling, to get the dialogue? You know, they're sitting there for the first time, perhaps, in front of a financial advisor that's handling stuff that they, in full transparency, haven't had a hand in. They may not even know where to begin. Can you give a couple of suggestions of some good starting points?
Yeah, I mean, I would just ask for an explanation of, what do we have? What are these accounts? Where did they come from? If they can explain, okay, well, this was an old 401k rollover whenever your spouse left this job. And so we rolled it into this IRA, or this money is set aside for, the purpose of it was estate planning or college planning or things like that. So ask what you have and ask what the purpose of each of the accounts are. Whenever I plan for somebody, there's a purpose for something, right? That's why we don't use just one product or just one thing. There's a purpose. These things are all tools. So what is the purpose of this account? How is it, what's the tax treatment? How is it benefiting me, or what is it going to be used for? Those are just some of the things that I would sit down and ask, because again, like I said, a lot of people, they just, they've never had to deal with it. So,
right.
And if you're just unsure, just ask them to explain anything. Can you just start from the beginning?
Right.
Like
talk to me as if I don't know what any of it is.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's no other way to find those things out other than ask. A lot of people will research online, so they'll come to us and kind of ask a question. But there's no stupid questions. I want you to feel comfortable. So
we touched upon this a little bit earlier, but I want to reiterate it because I think it's so important. Emotional stress and financial trauma can often go hand in hand. Women that have lost a spouse may suddenly find themselves thrust into a situation where there's a decrease in income. That's such a touchy and personal subject.
Yeah,
I know that you, as is shown based on talking with you here, really balance compassion with education. But what do you say to the women that maybe don't feel like that with the advisor that they have? And how can they leave a situation? And maybe that's, that's the real question for women that are with an advisor that they don't feel like hears them, but they don't know how to get out of that situation. They don't know how to transfer advisors. How do we transfer assets? Can you talk about that briefly?
Yeah. It is, like you said, it's a very emotional time for them, and it can be very confusing. And whenever you're trying to grieve yet deal with these things, it can be difficult. And if you don't have somebody that has your best interest in heart, then it can be difficult. But you deserve a lot more than short answers, or just do this because I say, or this is how it works. You deserve an explanation. You deserve time to be explain, to have those things explained to you.
It's perfectly reasonable to say, I need to sleep on it. I want to talk about it with my kids.
Absolutely. I mean, and this goes even for people that aren't in this situation. But if you're being rushed into something, we need to do this today because of this, more often than not, yes, it's a red flag, and they're just trying to do it maybe for their benefit and not necessarily yours. So if you aren't given the time to think, or ask a friend or a colleague or your children or somebody like that, then, I think that it's okay to say, hey, you know what, I'm moving on from this. And as far as, moving away from an advisor, at the end of the day, I mean, some people are afraid because they've had a long relationship with somebody and they feel bad or something like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, we can be friends, but you don't owe me anything.
Right.
If you feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing for you, you don't owe me anything. Move on. If you feel like that's right for you, then I want you to move on. That means I'm not doing my job. And so it can be difficult. It can be tough, especially, if you're not the type of person that is good with confrontation or anything like that. Unfortunately, people can be predatory in a way where they're, trying to guilt you into staying or doing something like that. But at the end of the day, this is your life. These are your decisions to make. I'm here to guide you in the right direction, but I'm not here to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. So, if you're working with somebody that makes you feel like that, then, move on, because, you shouldn't feel like that, especially in a situation, with money, your livelihood, all of these things on the line. You deserve a lot more than just, do this because I say so.
And from a logistical standpoint, talk people through what it would look like if I'm with advisor X over here and I'm not happy. How do I come to someone like you?
Yeah.
Do I come to you and I go, and you help me move things over so they're under your, how does that work?
Yeah. So there's a process, and it just depends on the types of accounts that you have and everything like that. But, most of the time you don't need the other advisor to sign off on you moving anything. So you come to me, we sit down, we have a conversation, we have a meeting, and we discuss what it is that's important to you, what you want to do. Okay, here's the type of accounts that you have, and if I have changes or suggestions, or we're going to move from one company to another, it's the paperwork that I'm doing that is going to let the other company know that they're transferring it to me. So a lot of the times I don't even necessarily have to go to the other advisor. And, if we do, and you're uncomfortable doing it, I'll do it. I'll pick up the phone. Hey, sorry, you know what? This is what's going on. And so, you're under an obligation. You can't hold people's money hostage or anything. So you would come to me, we would come up with a plan, and whether it's keeping your accounts the way that they are and just transferring them to me, a lot of times it's just paperwork, honestly. And some people, you don't even have to, necessarily notify the other person, especially if you don't have a good relationship with them. If you do, and you want to say, hey, look, I'm just doing something different. I'm at a different point in my life. Things have changed for me. And so I'm doing something different. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you've done for me, but I'm moving on. And, again, if they're a professional, then that happens, day in and day out. People lose clients, and it's just a matter of sitting down, and then, whether you're transferring an account or moving it to a completely new type of thing, it's mainly the paperwork that we're doing.
So ladies, this doesn't have to be an intimidating conversation. And a lot of times it just comes down to having somebody on your team that you feel like you can communicate with, that has your best interest at heart. So if you're ready to write the next chapter in your story, or perhaps that chapter happened unexpectedly and you're finding yourself in the midst of it and you're looking for a teammate that can help you navigate these uncertain waters, head on over to executivefinancialgroup.com. You can schedule that complimentary conversation with Stephen. There's no obligation. Sit down. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to take the lead. It's okay. As Stephen said, there's no such thing as a stupid question. It's just the questions that we don't ask. And of course, you can always find them on YouTube and Facebook as well. And make sure you subscribe wherever it is that you're currently listening, because we dive into these topics and sort of help you navigate these uncertain waters. It doesn't have to be scary. Education can go a long way in helping it feel less overwhelming. Stephen, any final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Take control, take charge, especially in this topic. What we find is the ladies are a lot more capable than what they might believe in. And a lot of the times, too, we find that they make, more level-headed decisions sometimes than the men. A lot of the times we find ourselves going back and forth with the guys because they heard this and they want to do that. And, it's like, okay, well, go ahead. And now look where you're at. So, ladies, I'm telling you what, I know it's scary. I know it's tough, but, find somebody that you can work with that is giving you the time, that's, explaining the things to you, and make sure that you're in control. And I think that you're going to be just fine.
And I'm going to throw my 2 cents in as a lady and go, ladies, trust your intuition, because when you're sitting down having a conversation with somebody, if there's genuine, if you get that little tingle on the back of your neck that tells you that there's something about this situation that doesn't feel right, it feels pressure, it feels, sketchy in some capacity, listen to that intuition, because sitting down and talking with your financial advisor should be as comfortable as sitting down and talking with your therapist or with your doctor, because they're part of your team and they're part of making your life decisions and your retirement. So I'm going to throw that from lady to lady.
Yeah, that's great. You know what? I as much as whenever I was younger, it was probably a problem for me. I grew up with 3 sisters, and so I had no brothers, anything like that. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's that helps me. Just I have compassion, especially for people in those situations. But like you said, ladies, your intuition is your number one tool. And I think that you hit the nail on the head with that.
Well, Stephen, I always am inspired by my conversations with you. And I thank you for your time and your insight and just generosity of spirit. You truly have a heart for helping others. And so I thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the conversation. It was wonderful.
And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
The opinions expressed by Stephen Sabo and guests on this podcast are their own and do not reflect the opinions of this podcast station. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to subject covered. Investment advisory services offered through Virtue Capital Management, LLC, VCM, a registered investment advisor. VCM and Executive Financial Group are independent of each other. Pennsylvania Insurance License number 670429. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to caps, restrictions, fees, and surrender charges as described in the annuity contract. Stephen Sabo and/or Executive Financial Group are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.